Ladies and gentlemen, we're back with more Podfest Asia, Asia's first ever monthly festival about podcasting. And we have a Singaporean podcaster in our house today. So, how are you doing, my friend, Benjamin, Mr. Miyagi Lee?
Very good. Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. This is really exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting for me as well because I think we met probably less than a year ago, not in real life. Yeah, we actually met in the same StreamYard virtual podcasting studio. And I was actually hiding in the background because I was producing for Daniel Boy for his podcast where he interviewed you and Hosan Leong and Wayne as well, right? So it was a fascinating show to produce. And replaying the episode still give me goosebumps, because you guys were so
Yeah,
funny and entertaining and interesting.
that was super fun. That was really fun. Always good to clown around with that bunch of people because they bring so much to the table in terms of entertainment and wit as well. There's nothing that can replace the chemistry that you get in that kind of multi-people show.
Yeah. What was your best memory of doing that particular episode on Daniel Boy's creatively unscripted podcast?
Well, it was unscripted. We were all terrified, but the funny thing was that Daniel said he was more terrified of us than of him. So I think it was mutual terror.
Mutual terror. That's a nice word to
Yeah.
describe it. Yeah. But I remember it was the height of the pandemic, right? At the time there were so much uncertainty. Like nobody knows exactly when we'll be out of it, right?
Yeah, I mean, we had no idea. Like you said, I actually haven't met you in person. We tried in the last couple of days, but never really
Yeah.
met. Actually, getting online and meeting online is actually a lot more convenient these days. And so during we've known Daniel Boy for a long time, and Hosan and myself, as you know, are best friends. We've known each other all our lives. So we actually found kind of a niche to meet up online and to exchange ideas online all the time, and just turn on the camera and turn on the mic and see what happens. So when Daniel Boy talked about creatively unscripted, it was literally it was that. Basically, we didn't know what we were going to do, and then let's see what sticks and what comes out of it. I mean, not particularly recommended for all kinds of organizations to go in there blindly, but I think for some of us, we have the capacity to go in blindly first, find out what it is like for people, and then tell people, okay, you know what, this works and this doesn't.
Yeah. So that was something that we will always be able to replay back. And also, it was done during a time when many people were experimenting with like virtual live streams and podcasting. I think you've been experimenting that platform, that medium for decades, right? I think you're one of the first pioneer Singaporean podcasters. Can you maybe walk us through how do you actually get started doing podcasting? When you discover podcasts in the first place? And are you still doing podcasting today?
Okay. So, like I was telling you the other day, I think I was present at the birth of the podcast. So as you can imagine, that were exciting times and also mysterious and a little bit confusing because we had no idea what podcasts were. They were just invented. It was a term that was invented, we found out there was just audio files. So my one of my good friends, Mr. Brown, the online entertainer and content creator, the original one, the godfather of online content, he said, let's give it a go. And basically what happened was that he called me up on the phone and he recorded our phone conversation, and then he put it online. And we didn't think anything would happen, and then it suddenly took off. And then he called it the Mr. Brown Show podcast, and it became one of the most popular things um, in Singapore as well as regionally as well. So it started getting um, taking some kind of form. It became private, at the same time it became entertainment, and then we started scripting skits, audio skits, funny stuff, and we put it online as well. And then one of the things that happened was that in one of the general elections in Singapore, it exploded. Overnight it had like 150,000 downloads of that particular mp3 file, and we were shocked. Our servers nearly melted. Our friend whose corporate server we used he called us, hey, don't like that lah. You're gonna get me in trouble. Can you go and find some commercial server somewhere? And that started it. And he's still doing it under his own brand. I, on the other hand, don't have a particular stream of my own. And as you know, I'm currently starting a job at a creative agency, and of course, I always like to say that okay, I'm media agnostic. Whatever channel is suitable for whatever purpose, that's going to be the one that we give it a go. So you can say that I am doing this for other people, other organizations, not so much for myself.
Fantastic. And of course, we know that you're well known in Singapore as Mr. Miyagi, and you spent the past 2 decades creating content across all media, right? Hence that your media agnostic statement. From theaters to television, social media, you're everywhere. And it's like, I think recently your appointment as creative director at this local independent creative agency Protocol, right? And I think there's a subsidiary, is that right? The content production unit, Unmastered. Tell us about your role and what are you doing, a day in the life of a creative director in an exciting creative agency like Protocol.
Well, I haven't started. I start tomorrow, so there's a lot of reading to do. I think the first thing that my new boss did was to send me links to all the decks that are in their servers, and I've been reading up on all the clients and finding out exactly what it is they do. It's very, very exciting. It's terrifying, but it's the kind of terror that we thrive in, basically. It's like, okay, let's find something new for the clients to be excited about. And I think I've met the team at Protocol as well as Unmastered as well. And I think it is an exciting bunch of people. We have the same philosophy in terms of creating really good work. And the guiding principles of that particular agency is that it allows you to fail. We don't celebrate failure, but we have that mindset where we are able to say, okay, let's give this a try. It may fail, but it may work as well. Let's look at the part that may work. So there is that kind of thing that is quite un-Singaporean, if you can imagine, how we've been brought up in our schools and all that. It's like, don't do this, don't do that, later you fail. So the fear of failure is what keeps us, behind as well. And that's one thing that we've been trying to change the mindsets of both clients as well as the people that join agencies to work.
Yeah. And it's quite inspiring to hear that, the culture and DNA of your new company that just joined is basically supporting this, not celebrating, but supporting failing forward. I think it's not about how you fail, it's about how you actually fail forward and basically pick yourself up, right? How many times you actually come back. I think that's actually more crucial, more than ever, especially with the pandemic that has shown out all sorts of issues. And, many people are finding it difficult to come back. So I think this is a great company that you're joining. Of course, we're not going to be talking about just Protocol. We're going to ask about your background, know more about your life, your career journey, and what you love the most and things like that. But first, the number one question, I think you get asked this question all the time. How did the name Mr. Miyagi came about? And exactly what you love most about doing radio work as well?
Okay. I start the radio work first. Radio work is great because nobody can talk back to me because I don't take calls. It's a one-way thing. So I think it's a little bit of an anachronism these days. I mean, if you're looking at podcasting and everything, it's so very different. Radio is like harking back to old times. But the one great thing about radio is that you do, after a while, you realize, okay, the reason why I'm still having this show is because I'm still making a connection with the audience. Whoever's listening could be one person, could be a lonely Grab driver, suddenly tuning into his car radio, and I'm talking for about 1 minute. And if I'm reaching out to him and telling him that I know how he feels, maybe I'm tired, hungry, I want to go home, I have made that connection there. And then the music comes in, that the music director at the station has programmed very nicely as well. It's a nice love song and everything. It brings out all the emotion. And that's the beauty of radio, that it cannot really be replicated with say just a music stream all the way. So you do need some kind of human voice behind it to say, hey, this next song coming up is just for you if you're feeling this way particular. Yeah, I love it. The other question as to how I got the name Mr. Miyagi is, well, as you know, it's a character from the Karate Kid series, and now there's a bit of a revival with Cobra Kai. It was also, unfortunately, a racist taunt on a rugby field in Australia. I played rugby for a club in the suburban rugby competition, oldest competition in the world. And I happen to be the smallest player in the whole competition as well because I'm not very big sized. One day I passed the ball and one opponent came and tackled me without the ball and stood over me and said, "Get up, Mr. Miyagi." And I thought, okay, my teammates are gonna come and then gonna beat this guy up for taunting me like that, right? But no, my teammates joined in. They laughed. They said, "Yeah, you look kind of like Mr. Miyagi with the scrum cap on and a goatee and a little wispy mustache." So nickname stuck. So when I came back to Singapore, I didn't use the nickname for a bit. But when I started writing on my blog, couldn't think of a name, and then oh yeah, I used to be called Mr. Miyagi. Let's use it, and it's stuck ever since. And besides, I mean, Benjamin Lee is a very, very common name, especially I think at Tribal. Tribal is a big agency. Tribal, we had 4 Benjamins at one time.
Wow.
Yeah.
I do see a resemblance, especially the speaker poster that I designed when I do the speaker review, right? You do resemble a lot like that.
Right, Pat Morita.
Yeah, Pat Morita. So God bless him. And have you been following Cobra Kai? Which support are you, which one are you supporting?
Good guy, of course. I've watched a couple of episodes. I haven't followed the entire season yet. I will catch up. But I think at first I saw the season 1, I thought, oh, so cheesy. I don't think I can follow this and everything. But it came alive, and there was a lot of heart in it as well. And basically, I think it's revived the whole legend of Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi. Hopefully, the spirit lives on.
Absolutely. I love that show so much. It's like probably the best nostalgia show right now on Netflix. But there are so many great shows on TV now. It's so hard to keep track. But I think that saga will definitely continue. There's a season 3, I think, in the making already, or season 4, right? So always cliffhanger episodes are always great because that means that it continues to live on. And our Gen Z kids are rediscovering all this old content, but rebooted in a really brilliant way. So we're not going to be talking about Netflix or Cobra Kai. We're going to be talking more about what you mentioned earlier about radio. I think that really resonates, and maybe I can connect back to podcasting as well. Like earlier on, there was a panel, I think one of the podcast philosophers, he came on to this festival and talk about the wins, right, that we can get as podcasters. And you, for someone who's broadcasting, doing radio, and you just told a brilliant story of how you can impact someone's day who is maybe a taxi driver or someone who feels moved by the music that you play in the playlist, right? So for podcasters, the same. It's not about the ROI. It's not about the salary or the monetary gains, because I think podcasting is the worst medium to get rich, to be really honest. Yeah. And what we really love are also not the numbers in terms of like number 1 on the Apple charts or being like 10,000 downloads per episode. That's not what we're going after. What we're going after is having someone who's impacted either in some ways or another, right? Maybe we could inspire them to take some action. Like the best wins for me in doing this festival, I'm actually good to go if I don't make a single cent from this festival for the next 2 years, for example. The biggest win for me is if someone, right, maybe tune in this 5-minute conversation between me and you and got inspired to go and do their own podcast. I think that's the kind of things that we basically live for, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think if you touch one person, I think you're a success story already. That's why I think podcasting, there's a lot of value in there's different. Let's talk about the difference between radio and podcast. Radio is broadcast. Podcasting is you can reach a large audience, but at the same time, it gives you room to be niche and tailored much more so than radio, especially in Singapore, because we have a small audience base, and if you are a little bit too niche on radio, you're not going to get the listeners or your advertisers coming in. For podcasting, I think there's a lot of room to be led by brands as well as government organizations to do with the more detailed intricacies of, say, for example, healthcare. So a lot of things you can't do in one healthcare video or one healthcare key visual about how to stay fit and stuff like that. That's where podcasting comes in. You can have an entire series, a whole arc on how to kickstart your life in fitness, for example. Or if, say, for example, you want to inspire somebody to get into social service and understand more about mental wellness. I think mental wellness is going to be a big thing in 2021 as well. And then podcasting, once again, is where you will see it happening, where people talk about the details. And because it's, well, not particularly set to a broadcast time or limit, this is where people can revisit some things that they think is more pertinent to them and all that. So the story arc is always there. The storytelling is done such that it can be broken down into modules. Not so much for radio, unfortunately, unless you have a radio play that lasts over 10 episodes over, 10 weeks or something like that. Yeah.
Beautiful sharing. I think I'm with you on that because I think yesterday around midnight or early morning, two podcasters came on this festival. One of them have a mental health podcast talking about the importance of unhustling as well. I think her show is called the Unhustling Podcast, and the other one is called the Compassionate Creative Podcast. So these are shows that inspire us, right, to maybe spend less time in front of a screen, spend more time on actually taking care of ourselves. I think that's the only way for us to impact the universe. If we don't take care of ourselves, we can't really connect with the others, right? And put our food into this universe. So yeah, these are the genres that are really taking off. And I'm just surprised that not many are doing this. Maybe there's a lot of true crime and horror podcasts right now. And I think the number one podcast in Singapore is Okay, Let's Go, right? Which is Malay language. And I watched the recent episode where they interviewed Kumar. So I think that leads me to the next question, which is about Kumar. Because I know that there are many notable stage shows that you collaborated with him on. And maybe tell us your favorite stage production where you were involved in. Was it I Am Kumar that left the most impression on you?
I'm very diplomatic. The answer to that question of which one's your favorite show is always the one I'm currently working on. So the story of how I wrote for Kumar is quite interesting as well. Also another, stumbling into it. As you mentioned already, I was writing for quite a few things like skits and all that. So the theatre company Dream Academy contacted me and asked if I would write for Kumar because the head writer actually had some other commitments and had to pull out. And then I asked, how much time do I have? And then they said, 1 month. Can you put it together? It's a stage show at Esplanade. And it's just Kumar. So it's basically you're going to be writing his entire script that will last 1.5 hours on stage. So I said, okay, I guess we could do that. So that was 12 years ago now, and actually 13 years ago already. But interestingly, I like to tell people that Singapore is such a multicultural place, such a melting pot that a straight Chinese man can write scripts for a Tamil drag queen.
Wow.
And that's the beauty of the relationship between me and Kumar, and we've been collaborating for 12 13 years, and it's been fun. It's always fun, and as we both grow older and dive headlong into middle age, our sensibilities change as well. And there's also one more thing that I think some listeners might find surprising is that even though his shows are all rated R, Kumar does not use profanities on stage.
That is such a surprise, right?
That's how great his brand of humor is, that his innuendos and stuff that we sit down together to help write out and everything. That's the beauty of it. And that's the difference between him and perhaps maybe some of the younger comedians or performers who take it upon themselves to use as many naughty words as possible.
And the brilliant, thing about listening into his podcast, right, when he was a guest on OK Let's Go was he shared stories of how in the beginning he was always getting visits and drink coffee sessions by the police in Singapore. And of course, at that time, and since the beginning, he has never used profanity. He even don't even mention body parts, right? We'll say down there, yeah. And he's doing it in such a smart, sophisticated way, just to draw the laughs and all that. And it basically paved the way for the current batch of the Gen Z, or the millennial comedians who are dropping F bombs, in every sentence. It's the whole sentence is full of more F words than actual, actual words or terms. So, it's such a big thing that he paved the way, and he was the one who actually, allowed such stand-up comedy shows to be happening in Singapore. And now the later generations are benefiting from his earlier struggles, or should I say, his struggles against authority. So he deserves to be put on a pedestal, right? Or maybe a statue
He does.
in the future.
Yeah, he does. He really, really does. I mean, the police stories were one, and then every show that we put up has to be passed by IMDA, which is our Media Development Authority. And so I don't know how to describe them as a collective. There's a gang of censors who go through our scripts, and then they will write back emails to clarify, what do you mean by when Kumar says down there, or something like that. Where is down there? Questions like that we have to explain to them. Okay, this is a joke, and he's referring to his private parts and all that. So it's the behind the scenes of how we actually write to the IMDA and explain the script is funny in itself. But that's how Singapore has been evolving since those days until today. We still have to send our scripts in. It's not so I would say it's not so ridiculous now, where they ask silly questions like, what do you mean by ad lib? What does he say when he ad libs? Blows my mind. But it's still a little bit of a hassle, but I understand that they want to make the entertainment safe for everybody lah. And here's the thing that we found out actually in December, when we were told that, okay, you want Kumar to be on stage, because now it's pandemic, right? So under the pilot program, we had this requirement that, okay, you must have safe distancing, that's one, and you must not, here's the thing, comedy show, but you must not make the audience laugh too much, because, saliva and all that. And therefore no singing and so on and so forth. And so the show had to be G-rated. So there was the first time Kumar was G-rated. And so we said, what does G-rated mean? Because he doesn't swear already. And what do you want us to do? And then they kept telling us, think Disney. I said, okay, fine. But Disney has some adult themes too, right? So it's really hilarious because everybody is trying to find a way to make it work. Even the lovely folk at IMDA as well, because they're trying to see where the markers are and everything. For all that we make fun of them, right? They are also struggling to come up with the parameters as well. Same thing when podcasting first came out. They had no idea how to regulate it. Does it come under broadcasting? No, legally it is not broadcasting. So what does it do? Is it a publication? We don't know. So that's why they have this huge umbrella legislation now. So it's from more than 15 years of trial and error of trying to rein in content creators who are not part of the Broadcast Act. And as you remember as well, Straits Times and MediaCorp were up in arms as well, saying that, these fly-by-night cowboys, they don't come under the same rules. It's not fair. So therefore, don't give them a press pass, that kind of stuff. We're still fighting that kind of battle. But I think slowly the mainstream media, if we can still call them that, slowly coming around and embracing this new medium finally lah. A bit slow, but I think we are getting there as well. Same thing with our comedy shows and everything. So like I said, media agnostic, but it's all about reaching your audiences, in whatever way you possibly can. So just have to work together, I suppose.
So are you optimistic in terms of the landscape, right, for creativity to blossom, to continue to be really, to level up, especially, like we know that comedians or even podcasters, right? Podcasters, content creators. The reason why we are in this trade in the first place is because we hate math. We hate what to do. We don't like rules. Of course, we don't like censorship. That's why we're in this trade. And of course, in Singapore, to do that means that you have to work around some of these constraints, right? Are you optimistic in terms of how you will actually allow more talent like Kumar to not just, to have a thriving career, but to actually take the creativity to the next level so that we are competing against the world, the likes of all these great comedians and all these great podcasters out there, right? That's why, there's still no Joe Rogan of Singapore because we have to work around all these rules, right? That's frustrating.
Yeah, well, I think I've never considered the rules a hindrance, which I guess is why I never really got frustrated with it. I found always some humor in trying to fight the rules or break the rules without breaking them. So that was part of the fun. But as far as making Singapore world class and competing with the world, like you were saying, I think that's the exact term that you said, is how we already are competing with the world. You notice that our audiences are small and everything because we speak English in a region that doesn't necessarily speak English. So our audience base is already small. We have to compete with your American podcasters and your English podcasters, English speaking countries already. So we're already competing out there. And if we don't see ourselves as world class, that's the only thing that is keeping us behind. We already are world class. It's just that we have this huge chip on our shoulder saying that, we're Singapore, we're so small and we are the little red dot. Little red dot, I think, is very morally damaging to our psyche. I mean, New York doesn't call itself the small apple. I don't see why we should persist with little red dot and say, Singapore is punching above its weight. You don't realize that Singapore is really very heavy. We are heavyweights. We don't punch above our weight. We are super heavyweight. And once we get over this mental block of saying that, we're just a tiny little country, if we succeed, then good luck. No, we should go out there saying that we can take everybody on. And I think that's the mindset that we have to actually imbue in our youth as well. And I just recalled one thing. When I was working with Mr. Brown on the Mr. Brown show about 15 years ago, we went to California. We went to Burbank because we were looking for work. We thought, okay, we are a bunch of funny guys. We can write scripts for Cartoon Network. We can come up with if there's if SpongeBob can live in a pineapple under the sea, we can write as ridiculous things for them. So when we got there, the people at the studio looked at us and said, "What are you doing here?" And we told them we are looking for a job. We think that we can contribute. We write in English. We are funny. And then they said, "You guys are ridiculous. Do you know how long I've been sitting in this particular cubicle? Been sitting in the same cubicle for 20 years. And you want to come over here and be a slave as well? Are you crazy? Why don't you do it in your own country? And you can still take over the world from there. You don't need to, think that, Hollywood is the dream. No, you can live the dream. You build it there. So you don't need to be looking up to somebody else as a model. Sure, you enjoy it. You can model it after that, but you need to build it bigger than that. So that whatever you see on the horizon should not be your goal. It should be beyond. That's what I like to tell people who are collaborators as well, that we are better than whatever people put in the press. Yeah.
Very inspiring, Benjamin. You know what you just mentioned really resonate. I think it's not about feeling constrained or that the rules are actually making our work shine lesser than the others on the world stage. Is basically the inside, right? And what we have and our belief and our mindset. And I think what you just shared in the story as well, there is this scarcity mindset that is not just prevalent in Singapore, but around the world. It's everywhere. And it takes maybe our own strength and maybe our change of mindset to think positive and have this abundance mentality, right? and lift everybody up so that, we can raise the tide together and all boats can live together. So we no longer need to worry about, oh, you are stealing my lunch, I'm stealing your lunch. I can only be better if I kill you first. So why not just collaborate, right? And I think that's one of the things that you're doing, in your career as well. You're bringing people together. You're collaborating, violently. I would say you're violently executing, bringing people together. And I always see you in many productions and not just podcasts. Yeah, you're everywhere because of your ability to bring people together and having this positive mindset.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've been very, very blessed and very grateful to, I guess, get along with as many people as possible. There are a few people I don't get along with. They know who they are, but I'm sorry if I have raised my voices at you once in a while. But otherwise, on the most part, I'm fine. I'm not the grumpy uncle. And I think that helps as well. Always have a, I guess, positive mindset and be empathetic. And I think that's what my son tells me as well. Empathy is probably the best tool you can bring into any situation. Figure out what the other person is like, and what that person's needs are, and see whether you can fill that bucket. And you see whether other people have buckets that need filling or can contribute to whoever else's bucket.
Fantastic. I think this is a great way to close this session with you. And you've dropped so many great inspiring words and value bombs as well. I think we have so much.
I like that term. Yeah. I like that term, value bomb.
Oh, yeah. The second one to mention that, I think just as I was a Grammy Award winner who said that, oh, value bomb, that's a new term that I should use in my book. So, yeah, thank you so much for agreeing to do this, and look forward to coffee session. I think, let's schedule it hopefully this month because time flies so fast, right? Like I could never imagine it's been a year since I see you on the screen, so let's pencil something in, and since you're both in Singapore, let's do it. Yeah.
Let's do it in person. Yes. This is the deal.
It's a date. So I'll see you around in downtown Singapore, Benjamin, and take care. Have a nice day and enjoy your call. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye. Bye-bye. So we have our next guest, and his name is John. And John, how are you, my friend?
Finally. I'm well. I know I'm well.
I can see how you look like. I've been talking to you so much on Clubhouse, but I've never seen you.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Finally, I'm seeing you in person.
Yeah. How are you keeping, my friend?
I'm doing good, actually. I've been away from Clubhouse for the last 24, 36 hours because I actually sometimes I work from home.
Is that a record for you? Is that a record in terms of like detoxing from Clubhouse?
Maybe. Well, I do check in every now and then, but because sometimes I work from home, sometimes it's like a hybrid, right? If I need to go into work, I will go into work. If I don't, when I'm at home, I'm a little bit more flexible. I can just turn on my phone and be chit-chatting with people. So I have to go into work, and that's why I haven't been on Clubhouse as much.
I think it's a good thing to detox, because like this festival is my detox. Finally, I can like put my phone aside and not respond to the notification that is like pinging me every minute. Sometimes it's like when you see the lineup, oh wow, there's a celebrity there. There's an entrepreneur who's a billionaire right there. He's on Clubhouse right now. You want to talk to him? Just touch that screen and you're in.
I know. I was listening to Guy Kawasaki right before this.
He was on Clubhouse. It's amazing. That app seems to be like a godsend, even for podcasters. Right. Doing live podcasting, and I think that's your arena.
Speaking of podcasting, how do I sound? Because I don't know. I've never been on this platform before. Am I too loud, or am I too not loud enough?
You sound perfect. You sound sweet.
Okay, good.
So yeah, we were on the topic about Clubhouse. Like you're seeing a lot of action there. So you're doing your live Penang Hokkien podcast taping on Clubhouse as well, because I've seen your recent posts where you're asking for contributors, right? People to participate in the content creation process. Tell us a bit more.
Okay, so I haven't started doing recording because you know how Clubhouse rules are, right? So I haven't started doing recording, but I did the last session when I recorded my podcast. I actually streamed on Clubhouse. So I do see people coming in and out every now and then to check out the podcast, and that's kind of how I cross promote, or not cross promote, just like essentially just promote about the podcast on Clubhouse that way. But I am contemplating. I have to find a nice way, or a proper way of warning people about being. I guess I can warn them when they are brought up on stage that you'll be recorded if they want to participate. Because with my system that I've been testing for the last several weeks, I'm able to have my regular session where I usually do it in a Google Meet, where I have people sign up ahead of time, and then they will get the Google Meet link. They will get onto Google Meet, and then we will live stream it on YouTube, as well as I will be recording it for my podcast. And then when I did that test with my new system, I'm able to merge those two. The Clubhouse people can hear the people from Google Meet, and vice versa. So the conversation can carry on. I can bring people who like just happen to stumble upon the room with my live stream going on, and they can come in and join the conversation if they choose to. So I'll have to test that out next month.
It's like masking taping apps together, right? So that you're able to reach or optimize your reach in multi-channels, and that's what all content creators want.
It reminds me of like if you have a studio show, and then you go out on the street and talk to people. Those are like my Clubhouse people, because I still find I've been doing this for a while, and I still find people who speak Penang Hokkien or from Penang who have not heard of my podcast. And I always knew it, because I can tell that the potential is still there. And so Clubhouse is sort of like another place for me to tell people about the podcast.
And I think it's also fantastic that because what you're doing, your intent is so pure, right? You basically want to raise that awareness of this brilliant dialect in Penang, Malaysia. And of course, this is also a language that is widely spoken in Singapore as well. You're keeping this language, this dialect alive. And I would say that, without missing a heartbeat, right, you are the authority for Hokkien in this region on Clubhouse.
I guess I could say so now. In the beginning, you can see from the description of my podcast, like the first, but I'm very, kind of careful. I'm the first Penang Hokkien podcast ever, and that's true. And it might still be true. I mean, I've heard some other people coming in and out podcasts that uses Penang Hokkien, but they just never last. Like a lot of podcasts we know, it's hard to keep up. And so finally doing it for 16 years, not missing one episode every single week for 16 years, I think I can finally claim that I am the authority now.
It's like when you look at your podcast, right? If we actually go into Apple Podcasts, sitting on your left, there's no one. Sitting on your right, there's also no one. It's like no competition in your neighborhood, because you're creating that niche category, and the rest of your competitors, if you want to call them, they have pot faded, right? Like they stopped pressing record after 7 episodes, whereas you continuously rolled out episode week after week, and that's something to really admire.
Yeah, and I think there are several factors that made that possible, and we can talk, whichever direction you want me to go to. I think there's several factors that contributed to that. But I just want to make a point. You were talking about kind of raising the tide and lift everybody up. I started my personal journal podcast in 2004. So my first podcast was even before 2005, so even earlier, 1 year ago. And I looked up before I got on. I think I started somewhere. I think my first post was October something in 2004, and that's for my personal podcast. And what I wanted to do is I was waiting for people in Penang to post it, right? I was like, oh my gosh, this is an awesome medium where nobody needs to apply for any license or what. You have a recorder, and I don't even care how you record it yourself, and you have internet and you can post it, and then anybody in the world can hear it. And so I was so confident that within a few months, I was able to hear the sound of Penang, right? Because that time I graduated and started working in America, and I really missed the sound, the conversation, the banter, and the wittiness of that language. And I really missed that. And I thought, you know what? Podcasting is going to change my world. People are going to create podcasts from Penang. I get to hear the sound of char kway teow and everything in the background. And a year later, nobody did. And so I was so disappointed. I was talking to a friend of mine, just on the phone conversation with my high school friends, and we started talking, and it was so much fun that I thought maybe I should just record it. So I recorded it and posted it on my online podcast, which is my first podcast. I haven't posted for a while, but I'm coming back because of my new equipment. Because of Broadcaster, I'm coming back. I started posting shows there, but then most of my listeners were American, so they didn't understand it. So I started a new podcast entirely called Penang Hokkien, and I started posting there, thinking that it was just be my high school friends checking it out. And then more and more people started to listen, and I was like, oh, people that I don't know start to listen to the podcast. And so that's when I realized there must be something that I'm doing right that's resonated with people outside of my circle of friends. So that's when I tap into it. But speaking of, how can I sustain that 16 years of posting a show every month? Number one thing, and everybody asked me this question being a podcaster and doing interviews for so many years, is you got to be passionately wanting to podcast on things that you want to podcast about. If you don't, you're never going to be able to sustain. And I think I always knew that in the back of my head, but I don't really have anything to prove when I first started. But now I can, because I can tell people that that's the reason why I'm able to do it for 16 years. And still, I mean, I don't dread when I do my recording. I still get very, very excited doing my recordings.
I could imagine that you will still be podcasting, or maybe you'll be called something else, but it will still be the audio form in one way or another in 20 years' time. Because this game that you are in right now, is a long game. It's not something that you just do because it's trendy, or like many podcasters that we see these days, they're just in it because they think that it's a great way to make money because of like the crazy money being bandied around. And it's like every day we hear news about podcasting companies, or like podcast production companies being acquired, or ad tech companies being acquired, by all these big tech firms, right? People are thinking, oh, podcasting is actually the new startup. It's actually the new way to attract VCs, and it's a money game. And they got it all wrong, right? Like, they are in it because they want to escape math. They want to avoid looking at numbers. They do this because they genuinely love to talk about the content, the subject topic that you're passionate about. And I could feel your passion is like overflowing. It's like, I'm in Singapore, you're in San Fran, right? Are you in San Fran?
No, I'm actually in Kansas City. I'm in the middle of America, which makes it even more beautiful. I've done a short story with Google, because at home I use Google Fiber as my internet connection, because I rely on the internet connection for everything. So they did a short story. I don't know if it ever got released, but I remember in that interview they were captivated by the fact that I'm in the middle of America, and I'm doing a language preservation all the way on the other side of the world. And I'm the one doing it, but I don't get to be there. But part of that is because of my missing it, right? My being away from it really made it even more important for me to try to preserve it, because I really do miss it. And people who live there that are still kind of surrounded by it, and maybe it's a little bit more jaded, or they're spoiled because they have that around them all the time. But every year I try to, before the pandemic, I try to go home every year. My parents are still there in Penang, and less younger people I'm hearing on the street are using Hokkien. And that used to be the language that we use all the time when we're out, when we just speak with friends. I'm actually not Hokkien. I mean, I don't know if a lot of people know, but my listeners know I'm not Hokkien. I'm actually a Hakka. My mom is a Teochew. My dad's a Hakka. But I grew up speaking Hokkien because all my friends were using Hokkien.
This is amazing. I didn't know that. And of course, for me, I'm Cantonese. Like, I hardly speak Cantonese. I'm ashamed of that, because it's like my only syllabus, or the words that I know, are all from TVB, right? Or the Hong Kong series. And to really be good at it is to keep on doing it, keep grinding, right? And what you're doing is that you're grinding by doing podcast shows, publishing them weekly. That's why your Hokkien is awesome. It's better than all the native Hokkien speakers. And that's not your dialect. Can you imagine that? And this is a real case in point of how, if you see more action, if you keep on grinding, right, you can become anything you want. And now look at the perfect Hokkien speaker right there.
I don't know if I'm a perfect Hokkien speaker, but I have thick skin. I learned, and it is something that I grew up speaking. I just don't ever thought that I would be sort of like one of the poster child, like the face of Penang Hokkien, and I don't mind doing that now because I feel very proud of that that achievement. I think not just me, but the entire movement, because we really try really hard. Like I didn't know what preserving a language is going to look like. And I did not start out doing the podcast thinking that I'll be helping with this movement. I just started it because it was fun. And then when I realized that there are other people listening to it, that's when I thought, you know what, if I have this platform, people are listening to me, I might as well actually do better. And what you're looking at right now is I actually was partnering with another friend of mine who's also a language Penang Hokkien preservation enthusiast. Well, he's kind of like a pro. What he does is on Instagram, there is a word of a day every day on Instagram, and he will put a Penang Hokkien word and written in Chinese characters. And yes, it is not unusual. We actually do have written form. And so I would then try to read not just a word, but a sentence that he put on his Instagram. I would try to read it cold. So meaning I would get on the camera and I'll try to read it really hard, try to challenge myself. And then I post it on my Penang Hokkien Instagram as well.
This is amazing. Your Instagram is so on point. I think that's one of the things that really attracted me to your podcast, because you don't just record an episode, publish it, and let it die, right? You promote it with great content like this that I think it promotes and drive traffic to your content, to your podcast episodes. Like, maybe can we hit listening? Yeah. This is you talking, right?
Yeah.
Let's see whether I can reproduce the audio. Okay, maybe not, but like this is
Lu Lang, Yi Lang.
Yi Lang. Okay, yeah, so they are basically, you're explaining what it means, right? Yi Lang.
Yi Lang. So Yi Lang, let me see. I'm too old. I can't say Yi Lang. I can't see something. Yi Lang si Penang Lang. But I can't quite see it. But he said the Chinese characters. But then when I see it, I have to read it in Hokkien. So that's why it's challenging for me, but it's fun. And so I was trying to, because my show is very silly. I have to say, you could say that it's a facade. Well, not quite a facade. Well, I mean, we are silly. We talk about really crazy subjects and topics, and particularly taboo topics, because we crave. Or at least me and a lot of my friends, if you're really, really honest to yourself, our media, especially being Asians, are very sanitized and very clean. I heard that you were talking earlier about how censorship and all that, right, in Singapore, and we have that in Malaysia as well. And so I think I want my conversation on my podcast to be a conversation that you would have with real friends in a coffee shop, and then somebody walk in and they can hear your conversation, kind of eavesdropping. I want that conversation to be that at that comfort level. And so that's the intention of my podcast, because I know because people crave that. If they can hear the same conversation on radio or on TV, why would I want to do a podcast, right? Because you can consume all that content somewhere else. And that's why I wanted to make sure that there's a hook. When they hear it, they're like, oh my gosh, that is how I would talk with my friends. And this is how I actually get all my guests as well. I started off with two of my high school friends, and they ended up really not becoming the guests anymore, because people who heard our conversation request to be on the show, because they would hear the subject matter and they're like, oh, but I know another point of view, or I know somebody else has his stories, and then they want to come on and they want to share their stories. And that's how I have signed up, right? I have probably during the pandemic, I have approximately 40 to 50 guests. Of course, we were talking about how I plan my show. I record all 4 shows all at once, and in one weekend. So my recording schedule is 7 a.m. until about 4:30 p.m. At my time. And so you gotta really want to do that to be able to do that on a weekend, right? Because I work Monday to Friday and then I have to do the recording that way. But I only do that once a week. And that's how I sustain my momentum is I give it my all once a month, and then I will release it one at a time. And the length of my show is an hour and a half, averagely to 2 hours. And but people love that. Like if I post a show that's like, an hour, people would complain because they play it in the background when they're working and when they're driving. And if it's too short, they'll tell me.
Fantastic. It's like these feedback are priceless, right? Because it gives you
they tell you
more energy, more time to make even the next episode even better than the previous one.
Guess
And
what?
what you just described, right, is pod storm. It's like doing batch recording and basically filling up your entire day with multiple episode recording so that you finish that recording and then you can batch edit it down to in the versions that you want it to be heard, and then release them in a daily basis. So what you're doing is incredible. It's very efficient, it's productive, and it's keeping your listeners engaged consistently. So I think this is a great strategy. And for whoever, new podcasters or newbie who are like uninspired, not knowing what kind of show they should do, they should look here. This is the person, this is the model that you should learn from, because first of all, he has no competition because he knows exactly who's in his neighborhood. In his neighborhood, there are no Hokkien, Penang podcasts that are doing the way he's doing it. And it's like, if you want to really create your own category, right? That's the strategy. That's the well thought out plan before you even execute. So I really love what you're doing.
It's niche of a niche right now, because not just a language podcast, it's a language preservation podcast. Not just that, it's a language preservation podcast for Hokkien, and not just that, it's Penang Hokkien specifically. So it's very niche. And if I thought that I was gonna reach the general public, I would not have started, because that's why you were talking about the genuineness of the reason why I want to do this podcast. I have a very clear, maybe we talk a little bit about it or somebody else on Clubhouse. I have a very clear vision of what I want to do with this podcast. And that is to be using this language, and with the usage of this language and the fun, silly subject topics that we get into, hook people on listening to it. And while they are 200 episode deep, they realize, why don't I speak this language to my children? It is so fun for me. Why don't I talk to them? And then they realize that, okay, now there are news reports reporting that, how few people now speak Penang Hokkien. And that's what I want them to realize. It touches the parents, and then they would have to speak that to their children. And my show is not for young kids. Like, you don't listen to my show to have them learn. Well, you could, but with your supervision, because it's only for adults. Because we get into, unlike your Benjamin earlier talking about, like Kumar never used cuss words. We do, and my thing is that cuss words are part of the language. If we want to preserve the language, we've got to preserve the entire language. It's not up to me to try to sort of censor what we preserve and what we don't. So that's my thought.
It's just as colorful as my dialect, which is Cantonese. The swear words are what makes it more interesting and makes it so colorful, right? And self-censorship, like that's why we love podcasting, because who cares? And we can get away with tons of stuff in this realm. And it's just amazing that the time flies. We only have 5 minutes left. We don't even talk about other things that you're doing. Preservation of Hokkien language is just one aspect, or should I say that one part of what you're doing great work on. And I also know that in addition to preserving this dialect, you are also someone who actually support and also fight for Asian LGBTQ causes. Tell us more about that and how Podcast Asia can also support, what you're doing.
Yeah, for sure. And okay, so that was the reason why I started a podcast, is because I want to claim a space for me, no matter how small that space is to be able to be in the pod. And we used to call it the podosphere. I don't know if people still use it, but in the world of podcasting, I want to claim a spot for a queer Asian person, a voice. You can, my original podcast, but the first one I say, called Online Podcast, and that podcast has in the description, I say, a voice of a minority could never be louder now that there's podcasting, right? And I truly believe in that, because it used to be I have to be approved by somebody to speak on media, and now I am my own medium, and I can go out and actually talk about all the subjects and topics that I want to talk about. And I talk a lot about my past of how I struggle for how people used to tease me for being gay, and how I came to terms with it, and then also how I can share my experience so that other people don't have to walk through the winding path that I went through, if they know that there's somebody who is like them. Because when I was growing up, I don't have somebody they can look up to and say, oh, somebody who looked like me and who's also queer. And so I didn't have that. And so I think putting my voice out there allow people to at least see that, oh, there's somebody like me. I remember in the early days, I used to get emails weekly from people talking to me about how they don't have anybody else to talk to. Particularly in Asia, because you don't go to your parents and talk about topics like that, right? So it's tough, and it has made progress, and that's why I sort of stopped my podcast and focusing a little bit. Slow down. I didn't say stop. I didn't stop the show entirely. I just paused for a while, because I felt like we've made enough progress. And then I'm kind of wrong with that. There's still a lot of things to do, a lot more work to do, and therefore I want to continue that journey back again. I'm gonna restart that journey. I also have another podcast called Pride Talk. I volunteer for an organization here in America called National Association of Asian American Professionals, and I started that podcast a year ago. I'm editing season 3 right now. We have season 1 and 2, is to talk in depth, like an hour and a half, 2 hours in depth with Asian American professionals about coming out and about being queer, and what is that like? What is it different from other people, and how can we learn from their journey, or what are the things? What advice would they give other people? And so that is something that I'm also actively putting myself out there just to claim a spot, so that I am represented. The queer Asian face is there, and claiming a spot for our own voice.
I think you treat your podcast as a form of self-expression, and also to increase representation, right, on the medium of podcasting. And in the end result of that is actually something that's really positive, because you basically created your own category. There's no other podcaster that I know who exists right now who actually have a podcast about Penang Hokkien and it's queer. So I think you define this category, you created this category, and if there is a chart that actually measures this, right, you'll be number 1.
And here's the thing. Previously, before podcasting, I think of any sort of media platform, you have to be able to be popular enough to get on stage. After podcasting, you get to be on stage no matter what it is, like no matter how popular or unpopular, or what the society think is popular or good or proper. You don't have to anymore. You can just go straight to it. And that's when I grasped on it in 2004. It's like, oh my gosh, because I was a broadcasting and film major in school. So I know what broadcasting is and how difficult it is to get through broadcasting. So when I heard that podcasting is something that I control everything, I went straight for it, and I went all the way to the very extreme of what I wanted to do. So very niche stuff, but that's how you claim your voice. You know, when I first started my first podcast, I hand-coded my RSS feed. I wrote it in text. Yes.
That's incredible. It's like so much heavy lifting, but you went through it, and I think your process has changed dramatically, right, over the years. Right now, it's as simple as, like, for a new podcaster, they don't know how easy it is. Like, just get an account on Anchor, press a button. You can even record for using a memo app on your iPhone, and it's like a podcast. Good. Yeah. And why are people not doing it? I don't understand. Like,
Yeah, I still do it sort of the old way. I control all my feeds, so I don't use any service. I still, it's my personal one. I control everything. I just have a fear, because I've gone through a lot of ups and downs with podcasting, and so I didn't want anybody to control my feed. If you remember, if you think, like, I've seen a lot of my friends, they went with this company and they hosted all the podcasts, and the podcast hosting server company just went out of business and they lost all their shows. So just be careful. Make sure you have a copy of all your shows, no matter where you host.
Great advice. I think now you're inspiring us to also take over control of that.
Archive.
Archive it, yeah. And don't trust all the big tech firms and of course the hosting platforms. Some of them are pretty good, so I have to also acknowledge and recognize them because mine is hosted on Omni, by the way. So I have to say good things about them. Anyway, moving on. I think you mentioned about niches. I think Jesse from Breaking Bad series, right, will probably say this. The riches are in the niches, bitches.
Yeah. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on, and I had such great fun talking to you. I always have fun when I'm in Clubhouse and I find that you're actually in that room. I would actually join that room just to engage you and interact with you and find out what you're up to. And it's incredible that every day I'm looking at your social now as well, and you're putting so much effort into promoting your show and getting this Hokkien preservation. This is like a campaign. It's like a movement. And if there's anything we could do to support your movement, please let us know. We'll back you 100% because we truly believe in what you're doing, and then we think your intent is pure. Your show deserves to travel everywhere around the world where Hokkien is.
Can I have an action item for everybody? If you meet anybody who speaks Hokkien, no matter whether it's in Singapore Hokkien or what, especially particularly Penang Hokkien or Northern Malaysian Hokkien, is to tell them about the podcast. Ask them to go check it out because there's still too many people do not know about it yet. So PenangHokkien.com or just search for Penang Hokkien podcast anywhere podcast is served.
Oh, I can just tell my smart speaker or Alexa or Siri or Hey Google, just play Penang Hokkien podcast and your voice will fill up our entire apartment, right?
Yes, my annoying laugh would irritate your ears too.
I think it's beautiful to our ears. Thank you so much for agreeing.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
Really appreciate you. So I hope to see you back on the festival sometime in the future. Hopefully we can do an in-person event and then we have a stage for you to go up and actually do your show live in front of a big crowd. I think that will be a great day.
Looking forward to it.
Big dreams for offers. Yeah. Most importantly, let's start and plan this.
Right.
Yeah, John, you have a nice day. I don't know what time is it over there, but it's 11 a.m.
It's almost 9. It's just past 9.
All right. So enjoy your Clubhouse and your rooms, and I'll be checking out your live recording as well. So
all right, sure.
Clubhouse.
Bye. Nice to chat with you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. And that's John from Penang Hokkien Podcast. Remember to go check out his show. I think it's probably one of the best shows that are birthed from this region, and it's something that is so authentic and real. I think the moment when you press play, right, you'll be sucked into this, world of pure language that are still widely spoken in parts of Asia. And can you imagine that a person who created this show is actually living in Kansas City, in America, and he's not living in Asia anymore? But I think we can all support his intent, which is to create great podcast shows, and we can back this 100%. And I urge every podcasters, everyone in Podcast Asia community, the listeners as well, to go check out Penang Hokkien Podcast. So while we wait for our next guest, let me just do some shout outs to some of our sponsor members. I think it's important to recognize those Podcast Asia members who not just, keynote our event or they speak to me at this event. And they also support us by going to our Patreon page and sign up on our Patreon page to support this community. And I think they truly believe in what we're doing here. And I've basically set up this Patreon page to also allow, or to enable anyone who have, the intent to actually make a donation so that we can keep doing this more regularly. And it's not just something that we will do like once a year or make it behind a paywall where people have to buy tickets to attend in order to discover new shows like John's brilliant Penang Hokkien podcast. I think this should not be behind a paywall. Everyone should share these great shows and being able to have access as well to all these fantastic podcast creators and listen to their stories about their why, their mission, their purpose as well. Like John has just shared with us his brilliant purpose, which is to preserve that dialect, in all these places where this language is still being spoken about. and of course supporting his movement as well for LGBTQ. So I think it's important for us to continuously do this, and without the support of our sponsor members, we can't do this. So shout out to Loretta Elabons from LA Comedy Live. He's one of our early supporters, and of course to Insights, who is hosting this Future of Music conference. They have also come on board as a sponsor member. So shout out to Isabel from Insights and Trinkle. We have to give shout out to our good friends from Trinkle, our good friend from Hong Kong, and he will be coming on to the show later this evening, or should I say tomorrow, where he will tell us more about what Trinkle provides as a really great, valuable platform service for all his clients around Asia. And LAMC, AirAsia, Seiko Japan, Nielsen Media, Audrey from Germany, Booked from Hong Kong, Sounds Profitable. Shout out to Brian Baletta for keep doing his awesome newsletters. Yeah, so these are all our sponsor members, and we want to thank them and recognize them for allowing us to continuously do this festival. Oh, not forgetting one more. I don't have his logo yet. Red Bersatu podcast and Indonesian Liverpool Supporters podcast. So thank you. Shout out to Yoki Padowo as well for supporting us and becoming a sponsor member. So I'm still waiting for my next guest to show up. He's not in the backstage yet, so probably he has some tech issues. So, well, we wait patiently for him. I'm just gonna see whether he has actually texted me or sent me an email about his tech issue. So we'll have to maybe stay online for a while and see whether he or she will be coming on. Because after that, we have another slot for Juleyka, who's coming on in roughly less than an hour's time. So it's better that we stay online and keep this going. Let me see. Our next guest is supposed to be right after Benjamin and John. Let's see. I'm looking at my calendar right now. I think it's Jolene. Jolene is not on yet. Let me see where Jolene is. Jolene Siana from New York. Hi, Jolene. Are you there? So I just dropped her a text on Messenger. Hopefully she'll... Yeah, I think she's on.
Hi.
Hi!
Are we backstage or no?
We are live.
Oh, hi. Sorry.
You look great today. Did you just go for a makeover?
Oh, yeah. My home studio. I haven't had a real haircut since February of 2020.
That was roughly the time when we last did an episode also on StreamYard together, right?
That was around April, I think.
April. So less than a year ago, but nearly a year. Yeah, time really flies.
Oh,
Can you believe it?
I know. Anyway, I'm so sorry about the technical difficulties. You can hear me okay? I have an external mic. I don't really know if it's working, but I
hear you. Okay, I hear you so well. You're coming across crystal clear. So no issue on audio, no issue on visual as well. You look great.
Thank you.
Your studio looks awesome.
Check it out. I'm just gonna do a little zoom.
Wow! Look at that.
I know.
Ooh. Wow, that's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears and effort.
Oh yeah.
Hang it up and display it in the way it deserves to be. Yeah.
Thank you. And I installed the shelves as well. Like that, I did it myself. So I'm learning some things.
This is amazing. Can we play the video right now? Because I think the video.
Yeah, absolutely. Please.
Basically, put a spotlight on in your apartment, right, in your studio. So let me just hunt for that video file because I think we are all super excited to find out about this creation and this new video audio project that you're working on. And this is just a teaser, right? Maybe tell us what we're going to be watching next.
Yeah, sure. Absolutely. The first clip for sure is just a pan of my living room. Are you showing it? Because I can't see it. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. So this is my living room. It used to be gold. I don't know why I ever had it gold, but I never would have. Before the pandemic, I would have never had wall-to-wall art, but things change, So some of the work, it stems from, the marquees to ticket stubs to, I miss that, like just the environment, the ticket stubs. This is really old work that I've gone back to to scan, like In Excess, like Bruce Springsteen, like really digging in the archives. Oh, that one's out of place. That's in Amsterdam. I missed the crowd. Sorry, this is good for me to see because it's a lot faster than I expected it to be. But some of this work is from years ago. I've had time to go in and tweak it a little bit, and I love being surrounded by these images on my wall. It makes me feel hopeful for exiting, these lockdown restrictions, once everyone is, safely vaccinated. And I shot so much in 2019. I was on a pretty decent roll, and, like everyone else, we kind of came to a halt unexpectedly. So I love that I have these photos to take me back and to give me hope for hopefully, maybe the end of this year, we're hoping. I mean, we don't really know for sure, do we? But I'm feeling excited.
Bumps, looking at all these images.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's crazy that, that we never, things that I took for granted, and to be without it for so long. It's like the first thing, obviously, like there are so many issues, with the pandemic. First of all, we want everybody to be healthy. We don't want to lose people, but I don't know about you, but I've lost people. And I've had friends get really sick. And so, of course, that's the first most important, aspect to everything, and the most painful, So, what we have to do, or at least I know amongst my friends and, speaking with you and other people that, that are like hopeful spirits. I mean, I think most people are survivors, I think. We have that within us to try to find ways to cope. And this was one of my ways, like going back, like I'm obsessed with, as you said before, with documentation and with archiving, preserving moments. And for me to get the chance, like being grateful that I actually have the chance to sit down and, get a chance to scan old photos, get a chance to go through old files that I haven't really, that I took a second look at. And I'm like, oh, wow, that's not too bad. Like even some of the photos when I first was learning digital photography, and I wasn't, I wasn't as skilled as I am now. And I'm still like, I'm not a pro. Like I mean, I can't say that. I've worked very hard to learn and to keep up with, with skills and whatnot. But, I can always improve, I guess is what I'm saying. And it took me a really long time to learn digital, from starting out with 35 millimeter. Actually, I don't know, like this is kind of a fun story today. So I don't know about you, but I don't really get out much. I'm kind of like hunkering down for the winter. And I was taking a walk today, and I saw a woman with a Pentax K1000, the image that you used for the ad for this event. That's the camera that I began to learn on, which is completely manual. It's like one of the most basic, 35 millimeter cameras that you could have, but it's such a beautiful camera. And I still have it. I haven't played with it, but I saw a woman with it over her shoulder, and I like with my mask on and everything. I'm like, excuse me, and I'm walking behind her, and she's just like, I'm like, the Pentax K1000. And she's like, oh, hi. And so we ended up chatting and walking together for a bit. And so she's very young, and she's been shooting film, and it was really cool to talk with, another creative that, I was like, oh, so, like, sorry to bother you, no, she was, it was welcomed. She was like, I was really glad that you stopped me. So yeah, just, yeah, sorry, I went into a tangent, but learning digital took me a very long time, and I finally feel like I'm getting a grasp of it.
I think it's incredible that you're going from analog to digital. Yeah, you used to do most of your work, using cameras, not digital cameras, right?
Right.
And that's why your images pop. It's like I'm looking at that video collage that you put together. It looks amazing.
Thank
It
you.
stands out amongst everything else that you see these days that are cheaply produced, or should I say, mass produced. Like you could even tell that they have no soul in it. But every single picture, every single painting, everything that you produce, it looks like there's a lot of blood, sweat, and tears put into it.
Thank you. Thanks. I mean, it's what I love to do, and I really need to be surrounded by it right now, just because I'm missing my friends so much. Like I've had maybe a handful of gatherings that were very small and outdoors, maybe 5 since last year. So being very safe is important to me. Like I like to say I could actually be I follow all the guidelines. Like I'm like a very good student in that regard. Like I'm not traveling, I'm not doing stuff like that. I feel like we got to do all the work and then we can have what we want. So it's like, I think it's longer than anyone expected that we would be dealing with this, but this is why I feel like I need to take this time, because I would maybe like to curate a show one day, or make a coffee table book from all of this work. I don't know, something, but when I look around the room and I can, like doing my best to cope, like I just get so happy. Like it's the color of the walls are dark, but the colors in the photos are so vibrant, and just, it takes me back to those moments. When, being at a show, it's just like, you're so alive. It's just, there's so much from the audience to the stage lighting to just the whole experience, is something that I miss it so much.
I think like many others during the pandemic, right? And amidst these lockdown restriction, you feel your time dedicating it to passion projects. Like I dedicated to tons of podcast projects and the festival as well. You dedicate to this particular audiovisual project of yours that looks amazing, and we could feel your love for live music. Like one second in, I could feel that you live for live music. It inspires you so much that you would dig into the archives to produce this curated gallery, right, that are presented.
Yeah, I feel like, as when I was a child, I would love looking at old photographs. I know a lot of people do. That's why we take photos, like I just feel like I am obsessed with documentation, and, like I don't, I hope that we take care of this planet and that it's here for a very long time. I just want, like, one day when I'm no longer here, like for somebody to be able to enjoy these photos. And it's not just like music. It's just whenever I'm shooting, I'm always thinking about, like, getting all the footage that people will, cherish, like shooting at weddings. And, I've had clients reach out to me like after the fact and tell me that, oh, my father was very ill during my wedding. I don't know if you could tell, but he's passed, and we just really love these photos, and just stuff like that, like, I just want to take beautiful photos of moments that will make people smile when they look at them, and take them back to that moment, because that's,
it's like a time capsule.
Yeah, it's a time capsule.
And these live on forever, just like, the music from the last century, like Beethoven, Bach, they live on. And like all these concerts, all these live performances, all these bands that you captured on film live on forever, and they will continue to inspire. So your work will continue to inspire.
Thank you.
That will be your legacy.
I hope so. I mean, it's again, I still, I don't know one person that this like a year later that this has been easy on. I think it really is getting to everybody. And I mean, today was like in New York City, we've had a lot of snow. So we felt like very kind of like, not only is it a pandemic, we can't do the normal things, but also we've had like this weather that makes you feel like kind of closed in. We've had more snow than we normally do. So it's just been, oh, thank you. That's so sweet.
That's Regina Marco, one of our PodFest Asia keynote speakers. By the way, I think she's tuning in and she's
thank
what
you.
you're saying and presented. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, coping and doing things positively, it inspires me. I have so many friends that are doing great things. I don't know if you've seen Rona's show that she's doing, and it's like all the music, and sorry, like I'm like my brain is overstimulated on Wednesday nights. Anyway, that's also, she's doing a lot of productive things. I love seeing people that are taking the, I mean, I can't really say that I know anybody that's not doing something, but I think we also have to be, we also can't put too much pressure on people either, like no one should really feel the pressure to do something, like incredible during this time. I know that, there are some days when I just feel like I'm moving really slowly. Like the day will pass and I'll be like, wow, what did I actually do today? But I'm trying to be kind to myself when I do that.
And it's more important than ever to really take care of ourselves first, right? Before we can take care of other people and, of course, put good out there in the universe. So
yeah, just a lot of self-care, just allowing yourself to lay low for a day if you need to. I do feel like we're on the home stretch. I really do. But I hope that, I will have something special to exit this time with. And, the first concert that I attend after COVID, I'll probably be there with, I imagine I'll still be wearing my face mask, but I'll be there. Like, it's going to be weird. Like, I don't really know. I expect maybe the first shows will be like distanced. Like, I don't really know what to expect. What do you think? Like, what do you think about
the first show?
Yeah. Like the first show that you see coming out of this, like,
I think it'll be a celebration first and foremost. That means that it's safe again to be with people. It's safe again to enjoy live music performances. Like they're normally the last thing to reopen, right? So when we get to that stage, that is really a great day to rejoice. I'm really looking forward to it.
It's gonna be amazing. It's I can't even I can't wait. I'm hoping that they will do. I know that they're allowing some like reduced capacity things happen here. I live near this park called Prospect Park, and they usually have there is a band shell that they have concerts. Like I saw Nick Cave there, I saw Warpaint there, and
what's the name of the venue again?
Prospect Park Band Shell, and they call it Celebrate Brooklyn. And I haven't heard anything yet if they're doing it. They usually have it sort of enclosed, so like you do, even though it's outdoors, you do have to go through a gated area. But I'm hoping that they'll try to do something where they maybe don't fence it in so more people can, spread out, because you can still hear it outside of the enclosed area. But like all last year, people were just like, like getting on the stage and just like doing exercises. And like I spotted this guy that was playing guitar alone there, and I thought that was pretty cool. So I expect that we can enjoy some outdoor entertainment this summer at least. while we're waiting. Like, I personally want the vaccine. I want it as soon as it's available to me. I will get it. I will just personally feel better about that. But I just right now, like my aunt and uncle, they're in Florida, and I'm just like, they haven't had it yet. And I just like, my mother's getting her second shot tomorrow. I will be able to breathe better once, they all have theirs. So.
My mom haven't got her shot yet, so I'm kind of worried, Why is it taking so long?
I know I mean, they did kind of mentally prepare us that it would take a while, but it's, anyway, sorry, I want to talk about hopeful things, and that is hopeful, but that just like, I feel like I will feel a little more sense of calm when we know that the people that are more, susceptible to serious illness from COVID get taken care of, then I can maybe just breathe a little more easily, sleep better.
Let's talk about your live music tribute again, because I think that is a very hopeful, very positive. I think it fills us with optimism as well when we see that was something that we experienced a year ago, and it's going to come back. Yeah, it's going to come back this year. So was the idea for this live music tribute you're doing, or somebody else's idea, suggestion, or?
So the idea came once I started hanging the art on the wall, and feeling really great about it. Like visually, it looks good. And I didn't just print out, I know it was hard to see because the video was so quick. I didn't just print photos of the musicians. I think you can maybe see it right there. That's just like a live, that's at the O2, the O2 stadium. It's not a stadium, but the venue in London. I went there with my best friend from high school. I think it was 2015 to see Duran Duran. Like we made a trip there. So it's not just the artists that I have photos. It's like the lighting, and the crowds, things that I really miss that, and I obviously thought about it because I took a photo of it, just like having so much, being surrounded by kindred spirits and meeting strangers who love the same music. So the idea was mine. What I haven't gotten to yet, and I wasn't able to share with you, is that I've asked maybe 20 people or so to send me their thoughts about the absence of live music, because most of my best friends I met at concerts. So I guess maybe for that, I was probably inspired by, I listened to NPR all the time and all their shows with all their like sound bites. And I'm like, what would be interesting is to have audio clips of the audience talking about how they miss it, because it's like a partnership, artists will tell you that, they need that, that feedback, that energy, athletes will say the same thing, and, actors on Broadway. So my thought was just getting people, like different voices from all over the world, because I have friends from all over the world, giving their thoughts and overlaying that with the images. So that's what the end product will be.
And it's incredible because the reason why we are connecting your project to our festival, which is about podcasting, is because you requested audio clips from everyone around the world.
Yeah.
They give their own take and their own hopeful, optimistic, to put it in words, right? And to record it down to an audio file and just send it over to you so that you can actually assemble this audio collection.
Yeah.
Adding it down to something that you can present as a live music, audio, video tribute. And it's something that we are all looking forward to, especially when you complement your amazing visuals together with sound bites. I think I also contributed one.
You did. I have it.
overly verbal sound clip.
You'll be in there. You'll be in there. You're
That means
included.
you have to do a lot of heavy lifting to edit it down because I was too verbal. So I apologize for that.
Actually, that's good though, because then I have something to work with. Like I just thought that the audience could be a part of the energy, like, because they are, when you're at a show and you're like talking to strangers or dancing with strangers. It's like, I like going back to the show in London at the O2. I think I'm saying the O2. Why does that sound funny right now?
London,
yeah. So we took a ferry to get there, which was awesome. I mean, we flew to London. We didn't take the ferry to London. We flew to London, and then to get to the venue, we took a ferry, and then we ended up like chatting with this woman who was like a huge Duran Duran fan, and like we grew up with Duran Duran, and then we get there, and it's just like, it's a bunch of people around our age, so a bunch of like middle-aged people. It's awesome, like it was so cool, like chatting with the people next to us, and it was so much fun to make that pilgrimage. Like I've traveled a lot to see shows, and I was planning on traveling to see shows last year, so but yeah, just the because music is such a it connects you. And I'm so happy that I am one of many people who love music. I know I've met a few people in my life that were not really big on music, and they said that they wish that they were. And I can't even imagine what that is like. I honestly can't. And I'm not, I don't really know. I don't know what that would be like at all, because it's been such a huge part of my life. My mother was really into music. And as soon as I was old enough to go to concerts, I was going to concerts.
And I'm super glad that you brought up Duran Duran, because the first image that I could conjure up when Duran Duran is mentioned, their hit single Girls on Film. And I think that connects to what you do really well in, which is photography. And photography leads us to the next question about podcasts. What are some of the great or your favorite photography podcasts that you listen to in order to improve your photography skills? Or maybe you just listen to it because it's interesting and you use it for entertainment.
There's a great podcast called TWIP. It's This Week in Photography. And I've learned a lot from that show, talking about... like pretty much they cover a lot. New gear, like hosting for your website, like everything. It's all things photography. I really enjoy that. Yeah, I love hearing about the people's process, because with photography, there are many different ways to get the same results. And it's fascinating to find out like what certain people prefer, and like, because maybe I'll learn a new way to do an old trick or something that's faster, like to speed up your editing time, which, I don't know if but editing can take a really long time. It can take.
I think it's the part where even podcasters like me, right, we like to outsource it because a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
And
that's a good way to put it.
Yeah. So are you looking at maybe pivoting to podcasts to promote your photography work?
I would be interested in it for sure. Yeah. I mean, I finally got a decent mic, so that's a start. Awesome. I need some nice earphones though. And I have interest in that. I think about just like with my, obsession of music and archives, like archiving stories and I think that could be really fun. I think it will take me a minute to try to get to, a place where I'm ready to launch it. But I love to talk and I love to listen. So I think it could be fun and cool.
Most definitely. Yeah, I think we are all, looking forward to a Jolene Siana podcast where you don't just talk about photography. That's just one subset of your life and your career journey, right? You're into so many different things as well. You love live concerts, obviously, with this tribute project that you put out. And you love storytelling, right? There's no limit to your love of storytelling.
I love.
You're also
I
a writer.
love stories. I mean, I wish I had. I mean, I don't know if all of them are good stories, but I love a good story. I love good stories. I don't know if you saw my. So I know you talked to Martin. Was it today? I haven't seen it yet. Was it today or yesterday?
Yesterday. That's
okay,
like
so
2 a.m. Actually, 2 a.m. this morning. Yeah.
So Pigface posted this clip of a show that I was at in 1992.
Two.
So it was at the Metropole in Pittsburgh, where I went to art school, and I was at that show without my camera. I did not have it with me. I'm so upset. So I was there with my friend Tracy, who sings with My Life with the Thrill Kill Cult. So we kind of we never left that scene, that's like our, that's our heart. And I don't know why, but Trent grabbed us and he was like,
Trent as in Trent Reznor, 9 Inch Nails.
Yeah. So he grabbed us and he was like, okay. And he was just really chatty, really nice. He's like, okay, this girl's going to come over here in a minute. So let's just pretend like we all live together and we're involved in a heavy duty relationship. And I was just like, that is a good story. And then we were dancing and it was just light fun. I remember that moment and just being like, this is silly and fun. And I love everything about it. Cause my work, my writing is dark, and 9 Inch Nails, it's dark. And, here we're all happy and dancing and and then I told him I was about ready to graduate from art school. I told him that I was a photographer and that I asked if he would like to shoot sometime. So he gave me his manager's phone number in Cleveland. I never called. I'm so mad at myself. To be fair, I was about to graduate from college. You know what that's like. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating properly. I was just stressed and excited. And so I never called and I'm kicking myself to this day. So I'm really hoping that one day I can shoot with Trent Reznor.
It's never too late. Yeah, I think
I
it's
know.
You're still making albums, right? Yeah.
I'm gonna I'm trying to manifest that right now.
Maybe after this, we wrapped up this festival, I'm gonna chop up this little segment where you told us this fascinating story about your encounter with Trent Reznor, and then we'll just email to him, So please make this photographer who is amazingly talented, make a dream come true. Maybe she can do your photo shoot.
Not for nothing, but I think I could take some good shots of him. I think he would be happy with the shots that I take. So
you never make any artist or musician look bad on stage. You make them look younger. That's one thing. You make them look more lively, vibrant. I think that they look like they're at the peak of their performance.
I will say this again. I don't want to be it took me a very long time. Shooting live photography is very difficult. And that is why I literally have my finger on the shutter the whole time. I'm I'm a decent editor because, have you ever turned your phone on and you're facing the camera, from below you and you look so awful and you're like, oh my God, did I just take a picture of myself? It's about the angles and it's about the moment, and I've learned this, over the many years that, you don't need to publish 100 photos. You can post 2 that are really good, You know what I mean? So I feel like one thing I'm a skilled editor, and I always feel a little weird, like I'm either selling myself too short or being too much. So I'm trying to find that middle ground. Like I'm still learning, but I do know that I'm a decent editor. I can say that. Is that too much? I don't know. I've been alone for a year. I don't know what to say. Like I've been alone editing for 1 year. So I'm skilled at it.
How did you hustle in the beginning to build a resume for photography? Do you have to give up like a high-paying job opportunity or career to do what you love?
I studied photography in late 80s, early 90s. And like I mentioned that camera that I told you about. So that is not a professional camera that you would, be shooting weddings with at, really, I mean, you could, but that camera is just a learning camera, I think, an artsy camera. So I never invested in a professional camera. I didn't have the means to. I didn't want to shoot weddings on film because I felt really nervous about losing like the film or like messing up because it was somebody's special day, So I didn't really pursue professional photography straight away. I moved to LA like pretty shortly after I graduated from art school, and then I did other things. I still studied some photography, but I didn't really pursue it professionally. I did a lot of passion projects, but once I moved to New York, I was working at this members club and hospitality. And I would do some things for the place I worked, and I would see I've always, like, wherever I've lived, like LA, here, I've taken other new courses in photography to just keep up to date and whatnot. So I started seeing these event photographers, and I'm like, oh, why can't I do that? Like, I should try to do that. And then I realized, I needed to. It's always been a side hustle, like on top of another job. But I remember when I started, I used to do like concert reviews and also take photos at the concert. So I'd like write the review and submit the photos that were not particularly great at that time. I would look, for example, at the Bat for Lashes concert. I remember seeing my photos, and like I said, it took me a long time to learn digital photography, and I was like, why do my photos look like this other person that was there standing right next to me who's like published, in a review. And then I just, I started renting a professional camera for certain gigs, and realizing like it's a tool that I can get a better tool to help me get a better product. So once I did that, I just like had a side hustle for a while, and then I took the leap and left my hospitality job to do photography full time. So
that's an amazing story. Yeah, an amazing journey as well. Any regrets about how you have actually navigated your career? Are there any like regrets? Or I know that many creatives, right, they never regret the move that they make, especially when it comes to doing what they love, right? They would do it all over again because this is what keeps them alive.
Yeah, I feel that way. I feel like I finally found something that I truly love. Like I've always loved, like when I used to develop my own photos, my own film, and my own prints. I would be in the dark room, and I would like forget to eat. I would just be like so into it and so focused and like so inspired. And then when I started doing it professionally, like, oh wow, this is my job. This is what I'm getting paid for. Like I love it so much. And like I said, like when I'm shooting an event, like I am just as invested. Like I know my client wants memories of the night, like I'm going to get those memories. And I'm like, when I start shooting, it's hard for me to stop sometimes. So, I know that this is what I'm supposed to do, and I love it so much. I just can't wait to get back to it. Like being an event photographer, that's my bread and butter, so events are not happening. And hopefully this summer and fall, usually that's my busy season. Our weddings start happening in the spring, but everything is just, with the reduced capacity of things, like a lot of people are holding off on their weddings for a while. But I no regrets. I love it so much. I am committed to it. I will never retire. This is what I have to do forever. Like it's truly what I love. Like I love everything about it. I love the composition, and like I used to work in hospitality, so it's enjoyable for me to interact with people when I'm shooting. I love children, and I love, working birthday parties and like all of that stuff. I really enjoy it. Like I walk away from a job really happy, even when I'm exhausted, even when it's, a 10-hour day, I still love it. Like I really do. I love it. Yeah.
This question: When do your peers, right, especially those who submitted those audio clips from around the world for this particular live music tribute project, when do you think that they expect live shows or performances to resume? And how are majority of them coping now without live shows?
A lot of people are doing what I'm doing. They're finding ways to be creative. They are working on new material. It's not easy for everybody. There are people that are like stage managers that like who maybe is not necessarily a creative, but in that industry, like it's hard. I think we're all just kind of waiting to get through the spring. As more people become vaccinated, then I know that they do have plans in New York for some outdoor distanced events. So hopefully people will be getting back to work. Like I think Broadway will open in the fall. So I mean, I feel like the overall sense of getting back to regular work is the fall, which really seems like so far away. But as far as the pandemic goes, it feels a little closer, like we were so uncertain for so long. And I do feel like we're heading towards normalcy. I really hope so, because I know for myself, it's going to take, I don't really know that I'll recover financially from this year, but, I'm just doing the best that I can and, learning and taking, working continuously to improve and to learn new editing skills. I'm like, my days are, I'm busy all day, and I feel like that's how most of my friends are that are in the same, industry. Other photographers are also just like, like I said at the beginning of the conversation, I feel like most people that I know, they're survivors, So even though we're like kind of in a weird, challenging time and with ups and downs, like I think at the end of the day, people are just like feeling hopeful. I think, I feel like hopefully fall, there will be some normalcy. I know that personally I will feel safer once I'm vaccinated. I hope that we reach herd immunity faster than they expect.
I think on that note, right, this very hopeful note, I think it's also a sense of optimism for what's going to come. And I think this year, there's so many things we can look forward to. And we have not given up hope of seeing our favorite bands live on stage again. I've not given up hope of coming over to New York to meet you, and of course to attend gigs as well. There's so many shows that were rescheduled for I think November as well, right? So I'm hoping that will happen this year.
I mean, I feel like November is realistic. I think so. Although I saw I don't know, I still see some ads for some shows in April. I don't really see that happening. At least at full capacity. It's so weird though. I never knew about pandemics on this scale. I never really learned much about the Spanish flu, in 1918. So I know a lot about pandemics now. I know a lot about. I'm obsessed with listening to the news, which I maybe shouldn't be, but anyway, I'm doing my part, I guess.
This is fantastic. It's always nice to catch up with you, Jolene. And I think you're also on Clubhouse, right? So
yes.
Maybe next time we can remix this particular conversation for a Clubhouse audience, and maybe invite people who are into bands that we love, like Skinny Puppy, 9 Inch Nails, Big Face, Ministry, right? Rafco, Let Into Gold. I'm just name dropping all the bands that I saw, in earlier collage.
Yeah.
These are all the fans. They are still hoping for the day to see them perform live again, and they want to have conversations with fellow fans as well, because we are their tribe. You are their tribe, and I'm also part of their tribe. So it'd be great to do this over Clubhouse. Maybe that would be a great
that would be fun. Yeah, that would be really fun. Yeah, absolutely. I just remember before COVID, when a band would tour, you would see all of your friends from all over the world posting their photos of the bands, and then eventually making their way to you. I miss that so much.
That water cooler moment. I think now we can only replicate that on an iPhone app, which is Clubhouse. So I mean, that's how we communicate these days. Either that, or we have to turn on the camera and do this. This way is also pretty fine.
I know. Well, thank you for getting me over that. The first podcast I did was with you, and I'm usually on the other side of the camera, so you've helped me to kind of get over that initial fear. So thank you. I'm trying to be nice to myself and not be critical, which is I'm a photographer. I'm not used to doing this, but thank you.
You're too nice. I'm just hoping that you're not blaming me for dragging you to do this.
No,
Wayne, why?
No way. No, it's fun. No, now I've got my nook, my nice nook that is my spot, and I've got my light, and I've got my microphone, so I'm all set now.
You're all set for Clubhouse. You're all set for your own podcast. So many things to look forward to.
I need the headphones because it looks cool.
Yeah, to look legit, right? Like a legitimate podcast.
Yeah, exactly.
So awesome. Any last message for our audience in Asia before we let you go reluctantly?
I just want to say thank you so much for wanting to hear my stories, and for inviting me on. I really appreciate it. It's a huge honor. It's flattering and exciting, and I'm really grateful. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope that everyone stays healthy, and that just stays healthy and positive and inspired, which it sounds like, especially with your podcast and with this fest, is a great way for people to connect, while we're doing this, while we're in this.
Thank you so much, Jolene. And please take care of yourself over there. Take care of everybody over there. I'll see you again really, really, really soon. Yeah.
Okay. Sounds great. All right. Thanks, Wayne. Thank you.
Bye.
Have a good day. Your daytime, right?
Daytime, yeah.
Okay. You have a good day, and I'll have a good night.
Good night. Bye.
Bye.
And that's Jolene Siana, someone that I really look up to because she's the author of Go Ask Ogre, which is a really interesting book. You should check it out. And of course, she also have her own photography business. She's a self-employed photographer, and she has taken so many music projects and capturing images of great musicians. Like we just name drop so many: Nine Inch Nails, Rafco, Ministry, Pigface, Nick Cave, Bauhaus. You name it, any artist that has done a lot of great work in the music realm, right? She has captured them live in concert before. So her photography skills are mad. So go check out her work. And her website is jolenesiana.com. So you can go there and also basically browse through a gallery and engage her for your next project. Maybe could be a music project, could be an album shoot or wedding, or even other things that has to do with visual art, photography. So yeah, go check out our website. So actually have one more guest, I think, Juleyka, but she's not backstage yet. So I'm just wondering where she could be. Maybe if she's not gonna be here in the next half an hour, we're gonna just wrap things up because I've been podcasting since midnight, which is basically what time now? Exactly 12 hours ago. I started live streaming 12 hours ago. So I'm due for a little bit of a nap time, because I'll be back at 8 p.m. where we have another stellar all-star cast. I think of another 24 more speakers will be coming on to basically tell us or maybe chat with us on everything podcasting, everything on content creation as well. So looking forward to the next session today. And this event, this festival will climax with a one-to-one 30-minute chat with none other than Tony Fernandez, the CEO of Asia Group. He'll be coming on Monday. So that's basically 2 days later, after we wrap things up on Friday, close to midnight. He'll be on Monday during lunchtime to have a chat with us and tell us about his awesome podcast that he's launching. And we'll be, probably giving us some sneak peeks as well about who are the awesome guests who'll be coming on to his podcast. So this is a great festival for us to showcase podcasters around the world, and that could be anyone. That could be even your sister, who's living in the same apartment with you, or maybe your siblings or your children could be the next podcasters who will be featured on this festival. So we're always hunting for great podcast shows and podcasters to come on to this festival so that we can put a spotlight on them. I think what we're trying to achieve here is to ensure that great content creators, great podcasters get their voices heard, and we can hear their stories of why they're doing this. So I think we're not going to wait for Juleyka anymore. We're going to end this live stream right here and maybe reschedule her for later on. So I'll see you everyone back tonight for our evening session at 8 p.m. My name is Wayne, so I'm very happy that you stick around. So please come back at 8 p.m. tonight. All right. See you. Bye-bye.